Peace, family. What's good? It's your brother Brian, Ni Akoboidoku, also known as Melanin Rich. And the Uplifted Being Show is back, all up in the airwaves, with renewed energy, high vibing spirits, and we got a powerful show for you today, family. But just in case you don't know who we be and what we're about, we are here to remind you of the powerful creator that you are. Yes, I said you. Because sometimes we undermine our own ability, our own powers, our own capabilities. There's no cap on your ability. We are unlimited beings. We're just here to remind you of that. So, I'm not going to hold the line. I'm going to pass this mic off to my beautiful co-host across the pond, over there in London, UK. Sister, who you be?
Hey, peace. It's Sister Angela Mills, also known as Now Melanin, hailing from London in England and UK. As Brother Melanin Rich just said, a big, warm welcome to the Uplifted Being Show. If you're joining us here for the first time, unless I just repeat myself, but if you're joining us for the first time, a very special, loving, light, uplifted, embracing welcome to you to the show. Thank you for taking the time out to hang out and vibe with us as we get our learn on and uplift ourselves and uplift you in the process, hopefully. Really excited about this episode. We have a very special guest today that is going to talk to us or talk with us about something that should all be close to our hearts. That's our mama, our mothers, and empowering our mothers, the black women. But I will let our special guest, if you like, introduce or say more about the topic. So for now, if you would give a warm, uplifted being welcome to Brother Francis, who's hailing from Ghana today. So welcome, Brother Francis, to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome, my brother.
Thank you, brother, and thank you, ma. It's really welcoming. I'm really glad to be on the show today. I'm really excited. Super excited. I've not slept all night for this program.
Wow. We're honored. So this episode is called Dear Mama. You know that Tupac tune. But Dear Mama, because I'm not going to give it all away. I will invite our esteemed guest, Brother Francis, to why not tell the family about the campaign, that you started, what it's about and what led you to start it in the first place.
Okay, thank you very much. I once again will thank you all for giving me this opportunity to be on the show. I'm really glad to be part of this family this evening. About the campaign that I started this campaign about a year ago. As we all know, we've been asking questions about our race, what is wrong with us, and the solution to our problems and all that. So it's all boiled down to how what's the solution? We keep asking ourselves, what's the solution? And at a point in time, we keep asking ourselves so many questions. We got to a point where we were like, okay, it's going to happen, but it's not in our generation. And I'm like, oh, okay, so if it's not going to be in our generation, so why is this generation thinking about this? There should be something that can be done for this generation to see whatever that we are talking about, all these questions we are asking ourselves about us as a people, as where we find ourselves in Africa and all that. So Um, Asking these questions brought us to the solution that let's go back to the beginning of our life, because when you read all the books, it talks about the Genesis, the beginning. So why don't we go to the beginning and go and see if we'll find something there? Going back to the beginning, asking all these questions, we only find out that there's only one person you can ask questions. And the person too is telling you something else. That's our mothers. And reading all the books, we know that black women are the mothers of all the human race. So as the human race now, there's something wrong with us. It doesn't matter which color. There's something really wrong with us that is making us fight and kill ourselves. And it is the life that we're living now. So it boils down to then there's something wrong with our first mothers, which are the black women. But physically, it doesn't matter where they are, they find themselves, the black women being the first mothers and the first teachers of this entire planet. Our first teachers must be teaching us something wrongly. So we realized that if something might have happened to us as people, so we went back asking questions about how did this slavery thing started. Black people were enslaved 3 times, that we all know, physically, spiritually, and mentally. And now we are the results of all these 3 things that our mothers, if someone should go through all that, it's the women that went through all that, because they keep living stories, because whatever we know, our mothers left behind for us to come and see and learn about it. So I was like, no, so what is depriving our mothers from talking, and they're teaching us all this? So why don't, physically we know that they are powerless. It doesn't matter where they are. Even we as men look down upon our women most, unless you are enlightened and you have self-consciousness, then you begin to realize that women are gifted. But I will not say they are gifted. They are the solution, they are the beginning, and they are the end. So they are the people that can really make a change if we are to do something in this generation that we can see. So that is how come I started the campaign of giving power to the black women, our mothers.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Right.
And you said women are the beginning, the solution, and the end. So I just want to let that marinate, let the family, meditate on that. Because, our first teachers are our mothers. Our first nurturers are the mothers. And if we want to impact the future generations, we got to start with the woman.
Absolutely. Yes. It reminds me of that, there's a proverb, a Fanti proverb, the Fanti, one of the tribes in Ghana, for the listeners, that says, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. So it makes sense that it's almost like, by investing in a woman or women, you're playing with much larger numbers. It's like, the impact is much more widespread, because like you said, the mothers birth the nations.
Yes, as you said, the saying that goes in Fanti that says if you educate a man is you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. It's not a nation, it's a generation. Because it's a generation. When you educate one woman, you educate a whole generation.
Okay.
Her legacy keeps continuing. Let's say it runs in the family. Your mother's favorite food, she will impact the same favorite food to the child, and it becomes a family recipe that the whole family runs on. So it's a whole generation. And generation upon generation, our mothers has gone through all these I would say inhuman, and we still find ourselves in the same situation. So generation our mothers have suffered, and this we are the end results of our mothers suffering, and we are living in that generation now. So it's a generation, not a nation. A nation is too small.
So, Brother Francis,
Yes.
I'm in alignment with you. I feel the need and the necessity to empower our women. But how does this work? Because right now, there's a lot of women that are not looking to be empowered, that don't want to hear none of this conscious bullshit, they would call it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so basically, it's like, so where do we start?
Okay. This is a very, very important question. It needs to be treated very, very carefully. Physically, I would say when our mothers went through 3 slaveries, and the last one was mentally. And you and I know, based on studies, when they say someone is mentally not well, slaved mentally, it means, let me come to normal English, like the person is mad. So physically, our mothers, the women, are mad. So if you want to treat someone who is a mad woman, you have to treat it with cautiousness, because she might even bite you. That is how come we have all this diverse religion and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to touch on that, the only hope our mothers have now is what is left out of their spirituality, that is religion. So that is where they find comfort. That is why you find our mothers into Muslim, Christians, Christians, and all those other religions and beliefs. Do you understand? So with that is the only hope. You can't touch on them. We ask ourselves, what is making them go back to these things that they can't see, they are only hopeful of. So there's something wrong with them physically. So physically, we have to touch on the physicality, because the only thing that is making us go back to our spirituality is because physically we are not free and we don't have solutions to our being, the physicality. So we go back to seek other solutions from our spirituality that we don't know, that we are only hopeful of. Okay, so physically, to deal with our mothers, you don't have to go to their spiritual aspect, because it's something you and I, as men, I always say, I always want to use myself as an example. We are the end results of those mad women, and they taught us all that we know. Okay, so we don't have to be smarter, trying to be like we are more enlightened than our mothers, the women. Because whatever we know, they taught us, being spirituality, being self-consciousness, whatever. So the only thing they are lacking is giving them balance. Once we free them physically, because right now, as I stand now, politically and systematically, it doesn't matter where the black women are. Our mothers, politically, it doesn't favor them. Systematically, it doesn't favor them. So it's high time we shift it to them. And all these things, politically in Africa and systematically in Africa, or culturally in Africa, everything is in favor of their children, which are the men. And we, the men, cannot handle power that we don't even know what about. We don't even know where we were only taught to handle something we know nothing of. So by putting them in power and putting systems in place to free the women physically, then it means you solve their problem physically. Spirituality, they taught us everything so they can work it out themselves. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, I would add that as much as on the one hand you start physically, like we talk a lot on this show about how actually we're not compartmentalized. So, the physical affects the emotional, affects the mental, affects the spiritual. So it's like at some level, everything is affected. But coming back to what Brother Melanin Rich said, you have to start somewhere. And
So the physical, to some extent, it makes sense to start there because it's the easiest one. It's the one you can see, isn't it? So,
Yes.
people start feeling better physically. They have maybe better environment, maybe then they can think clearly. They have the basic needs, and it then enables us to get more in tune with, connect with our emotional wellness, our mental wellness, and our spirituality. But it's all really to take us back to our spirituality, because we are spiritual beings first. Spiritual beings here having a human experience, So I believe that's the journey. And for me, I mean, that's my personal journey. Of course, lots of us experience lots of physical things, and being a child, being a diasporan, being a British-born Ghanaian, born away from the motherland, us over here, for the most part, we all have difficulties. The women here have difficulties. The women back home have difficulties. But I would say for us over here, some of the main things that we face that probably our sisters, our aunts, our mothers don't face in the motherland is identity crisis to a certain extent. Like us over here, to some extent, we're trying to work out, who we are. Those of us who relate to home as Africa, the motherland in some part, even those of us who feel like that, but then, for instance, we don't speak any of the native tongue, so then that disconnects us. Or there'd be other things that would lead us to believe that we don't really belong there, but then we know we don't really belong here either. So you have this kind of conflict going on. So that takes some time for us to debunk, to work through. But then coming through all that, and being in the place where I am walking more to, I guess, going back to basics, like, being reminded or learning that actually we have an inner knowing, we have an inner voice, depending what you want to call it. Some people would say, the voice of God, or connection to a higher power. I would say intuition, our spirituality. To me, it's all one and the same, And so it is a kind of, we also talk on the show about awakening, but it is literally us awakening or reawakening to who we really are. And Brother Francis, I know you and I have spoken about this, and you have said it is like remembering or not forgetting who we are or who we were like millennia ago, or at the beginning of time when we birthed the world, as it were, So that's not going to happen overnight, is it? But I think the more, they have that phrasing, hurt people hurt people. Well, I believe that, empowered people empower people, So the more people who are feeling that, okay, they're waking up to themselves, to who we are, to our power, to our, what I would say, our rightful place and home. I'm sure, Brother Francis, you would agree, or you would advocate that it's starting that conversation and continuing that conversation. And it's like, okay, now you go and tell her, and now you go and tell her, and you go and tell her, continue that. But not just the women, if it's almost like if it's the woman that birthed the nation, it's almost the nation that have to contribute to rebuilding her and the motherland, if that makes sense.
What I have to say to this, right? I don't want to touch on belief, because if I should ask about what the actual sense of belief is, to my understanding, is something that we don't see, but we are just hopeful it will be there. So the guarantee of us knowing it will be there, that's why we cannot really stick our head out for the word belief. That's when you go to the court law, you only have, do you know? Are you witness? It means you're certain about it. So now, whatever we are dealing with physically is, I keep mentioning the word physical because our lives now, the life that we live in now, is simple because although it's not that difficult, reminding our mothers, because now our mothers, as I said earlier on, they are mad women. The only thing you need to tell them is talk to them. Talking to
Can you
them,
say
that
can you say that again, please?
I'm saying that physically, when you realize about all the things that we were taught, all the things we came to meet, our mothers are really mad women. But whatever I'm saying is within them. It's within them. Physically, we are killing ourselves, or we are fighting ourselves, or we have all these differences among ourselves as humans, is because our mothers has been separated. They see themselves as different people. They don't see themselves as one people. They are virtually one. It doesn't matter how small they are. As long as she's a woman, they are all the same, because they are the one that keeps making those generations. So in actually, the difference is our mothers have been divided and they are fighting among themselves. So literally, if I should see my mom fighting with another man, another woman who happens to be another man, our mothers are teaching us that she's another woman, she's not a mother like herself, and her child too. As a result, seeing our mothers fighting, virtually, then you see us trying to attack the other woman, or the men start fighting. Do you understand what I'm saying? So our mothers are really, they are only fighting among themselves.